This time I have a Sony EVC100. This is a Hi8 small home deck, not a full size, but a small component. Hi8 playback, Hi8 record, no tuner in this. This is the basic deck that a lot of people use for editing when they didn't want a big deck like an EVS7000. Anyway, this one here won't load a tape. We're gonna pull this one apart and see if we can get it going. Got another box with something in it to repair. Let's just see what I got. I haven't even opened this up yet, so we'll find out together what goodies I received. It's got a bit of weight to it. Oh, it's got video connectors on the back of it. What is it? This is a Sony EVC100 Video Hi8 recorder player. Cool. Let's see what's wrong with this one. This thing uses a polarized power cord. My Sony polarized cord has seen better days. Actually, it's seen much better days. This cord looks like it's been through a war. I don't know where this cord came from, but it's mine. I just don't know where it came from. But it is needing repair, that's for sure. Ooh, look at that. Looks like it's been chewed on by something. You know what? This probably came to me from some other piece of equipment that someone gave me. Looks like they had a rat or a rabbit or something, and it's all chewed up. Wonder if it works. Looks like we've got power. I saw something flash, and the unit turns on. First things first, let's take it apart. I want to observe the transport before I load a tape. I want to make sure that everything's complete. Just want to make sure that there's nothing in the transport or anything that is ready to cause problems. Okay, I'm just going to load up a tape. This is just a regular tape. We'll start with a regular tape before I go to Hi8. Okay. It is not completing the loading cycle. That's interesting. Jammed up. Something's jammed up. We'll watch that again. Watch when it loads. And that's where it stops. So I think we have to take this mechanism apart and see why it's jamming. Obviously, there's a mechanical problem on this one, and it's not completing the loading cycle. So let's rip it apart and see why. First, we'll remove the front faceplate. That just pops off with a couple of clips on the side. And on the bottom, I think there's just a clip down or a couple clips on the bottom on this one. No screws that need to come out yet, but there will be. But the front faceplate just lifts off, just like that. There is a couple of ribbon connectors that do need to be undone, so you have to kind of be careful when you do this. And these ones have ribbon cables that break very easily if you're not paying attention. There's one there, and then the other one is right there. Okay, now that the front is unplugged, get that out of the way. Next, we can proceed to remove. So there's 3 screws on the bottom that are marked with arrows right here that need to come out, and that should lift. I think that will lift the chassis out on this one. It's similar to the EVC3 that I have. And another EVC3 that was sent to me to be repaired, but I haven't got it going yet because well, the guy that owns it got into it and started trying to change parts himself, and I don't know what damage he did to it or anything like that, but the servo's not working, so I've kind of shelved that one for the time being. It's been shelved for the past year. Undo these plugs. Now I can put the rest of the unit out of the way. So now I've just got the transport. I want to remove the circuit board because I need to see what's under here. It's held in place by a couple screws on the front. I think that's it. And then it should lift out, and there'll just be a couple of connectors that have to be undone. I think this comes out like this, and then the board unplugs, and there's another connector here that needs to come undone. That, and two more connectors, one over here and one back here. This one doesn't even have to come undone, but I'm going to take it out for safety. And then two other plugs at the back here, a red and a black. They're color coded. Okay, now we can see the mechanical loading mechanism for this unit. Capsule motor drives through two belts, toothed pulley system. Here's our loading mechanism over here. Loading motor turns this gear, which turns the loading mechanism, or turns this loader, which loads and unloads, and there is a mode switch underneath here that quite often causes us problems, and that could very likely be what the fault is on this, is that mode switch has gotten dirty. So let's just start by getting to the mode switch. Take out these two screws. The mode switch is right there. And it will need cleaning for sure. Now, before I even clean the mode switch, the reason I think it's a mode switch that's at fault is because of how it loaded. It loaded and then it stopped about halfway. So it's either a mechanical problem or it's a mode switch problem. We can determine whether it's a mechanical problem by just applying about 3 volts to the loading motor and observe to see whether the mechanism completes the loading cycle. As you can see, it does. It completes the loading cycle. Nothing jamming, no excessive current. It's drawing 0.06 amps. So there's no problem with the mechanism. I'm pretty confident that all of the problem with this is that mode switch itself. The contacts inside have gotten dirty, and it's not signaling the microprocessor that the mechanism is loading correctly. So this type of mode switch is typically contacts just on the board itself. It's basically just traces like this on the board. This is just a cover that's on here. This is the switch here. Usually you can just get some cleaner in there and clean it. If I lift the lever up here, I can pull the switch out of the control lever. Now we can move the switch back and forth, but I should be able to just clean this by just throwing some contact cleaner into the switch without even having to take it apart. I'm choosing some neutral. Just position my nozzle so that it will fire it right into the switch here, and then we'll just give it a shot. And then I'll clean the switch by moving the switch contact back and forth. This will polish up and take off any oxidation that's on the switch without actually having to take the switch apart. Just give that a good cleaning, and then I'll pop the switch back in. Like that. I can put the screws back in to hold the circuit board in, and we can start reassembling the unit and see whether it will work. Good chance it's going to work now. You notice that this one doesn't have any surface mounted electrolytic caps. Unlike the camcorder counterparts, which were loaded with the bloody things. Just loaded with them. Okay, next is the mechanism goes in place. Oh, one more connector here. There we go. That's in place, I think, properly now. Put the front cover back on. Okay, I got a picture, but as you can see, the take-up spool is not turning like it's supposed to. See that? And it's going to eat the tape if I'm not careful. An alignment problem too, but it might work its way in now that it seems to be working better now. We do have an alignment problem on this unit though. If we look at the picture on the TV, I got a line through the picture. That's going to be the supply side guide. This one here might not be quite right. Oh, there we go. Getting stuck a bit. Let's just try loading and unloading that tape a few times to see if it's going to stick. So this guide needs to be lubricated. It's sticking. Yeah, that guide is sticking when it's loading up. So I've removed the 3 screws from the bottom. The chassis, I think, might lift out on this one without pulling the faceplate off. There we go. Now I can flip the deck up and disconnect it. I want to see why the brakes are not being released on the 2 reel tables. That appears to be why it is jamming. Releases the brakes. Get back under this mechanism again. I just want to take a look at the transport. Looks like I'm going to have to go down the top side to take a look at this, so we're going to pull the basket off this time. There's a couple of screws that hold that on. I need to get to the brakes and see why the brakes are not releasing. Kind of see how this thing works. You see, this hub is locked. So is this one, but they should be released. They should get released like that. This mechanism should pull back when the mechanism is loading, and it appears that it's not. If we look at how this operates, this cam gear here operates this lever. This lever here pushes against the real hub locks to release them. The two hub locks are controlled right here. So that white lever pushes this over. And as you can see, it's in the unlock position, and this reel turns freely, but this hub is still locked. It does not release. So what's happening is, as the tape is spooling up or lacing up, it's not being released on this side. Now, whether that's supposed to release or not, I think it probably is, and if it's not, then it's just the tape is sticking to the drum, which it might be. It might be sticking to the lower drum. That might be what's causing it. I'm just going to run the mechanism through its loading cycle and see whether the if we watch when I apply loading and unloading to the loading motor, you'll see that this will move, but it's not moving far enough to disengage this. It's either the cam is worn or something else is jamming it. But when you're in the unloaded position, both the reels are locked. When I load, watch this lever should move over as we start the loading cycle. So as I start the loading cycle, you see that the lever unlocks, but this one's still locked. It will not turn this direction. And now when it gets into the fully loaded position, it unlocks. It could very well be that it's supposed to stay locked to keep tension on the tape, and the tape is just sticking to the lower drum. I wonder if there's something sticky on the lower drum that's causing this to not thread up. That's an interesting concept, because mechanically it looks like it's doing what it's supposed to do. It will release when the tape finishes its loading cycle. It releases, but it doesn't release during the loading cycle. It only releases once the tape is fully loaded and the guide is in place. That's a strange one. It might be something like something's sticking on the drum and the tape is sticking to it, because with this hub in the lock position, as the tape is threading up or lacing up, it would just pull more tape off of this side, to loop up or lace up the tape. But if the tape got stuck to the drum, then that would certainly prevent the tape from lacing. So let's clean the drum, the lower drum especially. If you're wondering what I'm cleaning it with, it's a magical solution. I'll give you the chemical makeup. 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. Yes, I'm using water to clean the drum, the lower drum, and for that matter the upper drum too. You might wonder, why am I using water? What could possibly be the reason for that? Well, if it's sugar, alcohol will not dissolve sugar. So if a tape was attempted to be loaded that, say, had coffee or pop or juice spilt on it and it left a residue, you need to use water to remove it. And then we use isopropyl alcohol to take off the water. I'm not getting anywhere near the actual video heads with this, by the way. I'm staying above them. something on the head there. Scrape it off. It's not on the head, it's on the drum. About a centimeter from where the head is. Okay, I'm going to let that dry for a while I put the mechanism back together, and then we'll try it again and see what we'll lace up. I mean, the mechanism seems to be operating in the correct manner, so it should work, and it does work once I got the tape loaded. It just, in that loading cycle, it got stuck. When you set the mechanism back on, be sure that there's a switch here that gets activated when the tape is in the ejected position. Make sure that you've got this engaged so that it activates that switch underneath there. Otherwise it won't load properly. If you just put the mechanism in, chances are it won't release that switch. You see, the switch is jammed there. So you got to pull it behind the switch so that it can fully disengage that switch. Otherwise, it's not going to load properly. It's just going to sit there and try to load and unload the cassette when there's no tape in it. I'm going to try putting some Molykote lube on this rail here that seems to be sticking a bit. Maybe the rail is just gummed up a little bit and sticking. So here goes nothing. Some Molykote down on the rail on both sides. I'll do both sides as well. I'll do the other side over here as well because the original grease is probably drying up a fair bit. So we'll put some grease down here. Just to put a little bit on, and once it operates once or twice, it'll free it up. Okay, let's just try that. See whether this will load any better this time. Not yet, but give it a couple of goes and see whether it will. Oh, it's getting better. It's getting better. Ah, there we go. Just gonna put a little bit more on this rail, a little further down here, and see whether that will free this up. I'll try this several more times before I get too excited. Okay, what happened there? Okay, what we have here is something's contaminated the tape. The tape is sticking to the drum. I have a sneaking suspicion it's the little roller back here for the tape cleaner. I'm going to remove it. Okay, these foam rollers get they deteriorate and they start to leave a sticky residue behind. And I think we've contaminated the head drum and damaged my tape. So I guess it's time to clean it again. And if we look at the tape, yes, we can see a residue there that's been left on the tape. Probably that head cleaner. Those foam head cleaners go bad. So this tape here, I got to advance this past the damaged section of the tape. We'll clean this and try it again. We'll clean this the standard way with just a piece of paper up against the drum and turn it to remove any of the crud that's on it. And we're going to have to let it dry for a bit because any moisture at all on the drum will cause it to stick to the heads. I have a picture, Houston. That's what it's supposed to do. Let's put the mechanism back into the chassis. Just release the front mechanism, a better front cabinet. I can just drop this in. Just drops in just like that. And the front cabinet will snap back on. I got the 3 screws that go in the bottom to hold the chassis in place. Make sure it's lined up and put the 3 screws in. There it is. It's working. At this point, it's working. I'm going to run a couple tapes through this thing, and looks like the heads. That was just dropout on the tape or contaminated tape. I'm just going to run a couple tapes through this machine here and just make sure that it's going to run. And I think there's still probably a bit of a film on the heads from that head cleaning wheel. Even though I've cleaned it, I think there's probably still some remnants there that will come off and go onto my tape. But I'm going to run this tape through a few times and load and unload it. Right, so it's unloaded now. Load it up and see what happens. Okay, time to test. Okay, the tape is run all the way through to the end and it rewound itself. And there it is. We'll run this through a few more times over the next couple days just to make sure everything is good. And I think this unit will be ready to go back home. But at this point, I think it's fairly safe to say that this little 8mm Hi8 deck is fixed. It's loading every time now. Fast forward, rewind, eject. Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's good. As I say, I'm going to test it for the next couple of days before I send it back. This piece just clips down in here like that. That's a damaged section of tape. That's why it cut out there. Some dropouts on the tape, but as you can see, the picture is good. So I've had the little 8mm deck playing now for the last, well, it's been going now for probably 24 hours. I keep rewinding the tape and replaying it over again, and it's playing fine, and it seems to be loading fine too. I'll put a Hi8 tape in it. We'll try a playback of a Hi8 tape. So if I hit eject, as you can see, everything's loading smoothly. Going back into play. So I think this one is pretty much done. I'm going to get a Hi8 tape. We'll try Hi8 tape, make sure it plays back Hi8 properly, because this is just standard 8mm. And then once I'm convinced that we're good to go, then this one will be done. But, well, I am convinced that we're good to go. But once I test it in Hi8, I mean, then I'll get the top on it and we'll send this one out on its way. But it's been playing flawlessly now. As I say, this tape's probably gone through here. This is probably 5th or 6th pass. It's a 2-hour tape. So every time it plays to the end, it rewinds. I eject it, reload it, play it again, eject it, reload it, etc., etc. Eject it, load it, just to make sure that everything's going smooth, which it is. So on this one, I think the problem with this was, more than anything, it was contamination of the upper drum from that little foam pad that it deteriorates and it leaves a sticky residue. And what was happening was, as the tape was trying to load, it would stall the drum out, and then it would stall out the loading. And I cleaned the mode switch, but that really I don't think was the problem, because it was still doing it after cleaning the mode switch. It wasn't until I removed that sticky roller and cleaned the head again, got off the sticky residue, everything seems to be fine now. Here I have a Hi8 tape. This was shot on a CCD VX3 when I had one. I don't know how this tape's going to play, because this is from 1993. So this tape is very old, and these HMPX tapes were not very good. This was a raw footage shot in 1993 in the summer. So, 29 years ago. I gotta shut the sound off, unfortunately, otherwise it'll probably pull a copyright strike or a copyright match. But anyway, there it is, playing a Hi8 tape. Hi8's playing fine. So this unit is fixed. So we'll rewind this one. Alright, this one's done. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye. On another note, just before I go, we'll probably take a look at this. So this is the Anton Bauer battery pack that was completely flat. I got it fully charged. That's for the Betacam. So maybe I will take the Betacam out with the proper battery and play around with it, because it'll be a little more convenient to carry it around with this. Oh, by the way, this thing here weighs about 5 or 6 pounds. It's not light. You can add even more weight to the camera, but I won't have to carry around a second battery and trip over cables and stuff. So we'll take that out again and play around with it. I want to see how long this battery will run. And I'll show you guys how I charged it, because I don't have the charger for it, but we improvise. I'll show you guys how to charge it at a later date when I play around with that camera again. Anyway, this one's done. Thanks for watching.